So a lot of you guys have probably heard of the transformed wife. I've been taking a look at her stuff for a while, off and on. Like, I've been covering Activist Mommy, and I've been covering Transformed Wife. She is just a fascinating individual, like the Transformed Wife is. So I went through her Twitter and just took a quick glance through to see what it had to say. So let's take a quick look. I often get accused of trying to force my teachings on others. I don't march or fight for my rights, threaten or bully anyone, or anything else of this nature. I teach women what God has called me to teach them, yet some would love for my right to do this to be taken away. That's true. There are people out there who would love for your right to say what you want to say to be taken away. I'm not one of those people, for what it's worth. I think you should be allowed to say what you want to say, full stop. I have no issue with you spouting off all kinds of nonsense. That's really okay with me, as long as you're okay with me debunking it. Next one. My friend was telling me about her DIL, daughter-in-law, I think is what that means, who truly lives in submission to her husband. He is the patriarch of his family. Where he wants to live, she goes. How he wants to eat, the family eats. She willingly and without complaint follows his lead and lives to serve him. #true submission. That sounds miserable. I said this on Twitter. I actually retweeted this. Why would any guy want to be with a woman who is like that? Just doesn't have a personality of her own? It doesn't make sense. Now, there's a difference between being like a sub and a dom, like being in that type of relationship, and being in this type of relationship. The two things are different. One of them is consensual and willing, and the other is coerced through undue influence, basically. I just couldn't do it. If somebody didn't want to be, like, if somebody didn't have a personality of their own, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I don't want somebody who's submissive to me. I want an equal. I want a partner. That's what I want. So it's just really bizarre. Let's move on to the next one. We've been seeing pictures of children sitting on Santa's lap, and I exclaimed to my family, we never had pictures of our children on Satan's lap. Freudian slip, laughy emoji. That's really funny to me, the whole Satan's lap instead of Santa's lap, because my family said the exact same thing. Like, they would say Santa is an anagram, where you mix the letters all up, for Satan. It's obviously Satan. It's so ridiculous. Just the lengths these people will go to whatever. Anyway, next one. She retweeted a picture that says, more women fly F-16s in Israel than drive cars in Saudi Arabia. Just let me give my viewpoint on this. I don't think that war is something to be proud of, but I would be proud of the fact that women are taking an active role in society beyond sitting at home and taking care of kids and making dinner for their husband. Anyway, I'm glad that more women are taking an active role in society in Israel. That's a good thing to me. So let's read her response. This doesn't impress me at all. Mothers who sacrifice their bodies, time, and energy to give babies life and raise them up in the Lord impress me. Men can do what these women do, but men can't do what mothers do. So she's basically saying she idealizes what Saudi Arabia is doing to women, where they're not allowed to drive. They're not allowed to leave the house without a man's permission, without a man as a chaperone. That should show just how extreme she is. When she's advocating for things that ISIS advocates for like that, societal changes that ISIS implements, you have gone down the wrong path somewhere. Like, you fucked up somewhere along the line, so you should just back it up, figure out what fucked up, and start over again. Women try to convince me that there isn't a verse that tells us that women can't have jobs outside of their homes. That's true, there isn't a verse that says that. God commands women to be keepers at home. Home is women's place of work and ministry. God isn't silent on where he wants women to be. He's very clear. I think he's a lot less clear in the Bible than she's making out here. She didn't list like any verses here or anything. Now there is the odd verse here and there that says don't suffer a woman to teach and things like that, and women will suffer through childbearing and all that other good stuff. There's the occasional cherry-picked one like that, but what she's really appealing to here is what society was like during biblical times. And that is what it was like. Like, women were expected to be in complete subjugation. They're expected to keep their mouths shut and just do what their husband told them to do. I have no desire to go back to a time like that. Like, they were so much more morally ignorant. Like, they didn't have any grip on morality, say 6,000 years ago, when a lot of this stuff was formed out, like in the Old Testament. They didn't have the philosophers that we have today to refer back to, for example. I mean, we have a strong grip, I feel, on morality at this immediate moment. Now, we're failing in a lot of ways with morality, but it's kind of a progressive thing that you've just got to get better at over time. And I have no interest in setting us back 5,000-6,000 years in morality, which is what she seems to be advocating for here. Like, that's absurd. The one thing I appreciated about Hallmark was its decency, and now they have done away with that. So some of you may be unaware of Hallmark and what happened with that. Let me just give you a quick little primer on it. Basically, from my understanding with Hallmark, they aired a commercial recently it was a wedding planning commercial, for a wedding planning company. And the commercial used two women in it as the brides, basically, in the wedding for this commercial. And the activist Twitter account called 1 Million Moms, which has 3,000 followers, FYI, a third the size of my Twitter account, just completely disintegrated on Hallmark and freaked out and said, oh, you've lost all of your values, you're a terrible company, gonna boycott, Hallmark now, and all this ridiculous stuff. So Hallmark crumbled. They folded and said, okay, all right, we're taking it down, we're not doing it, we apologize. And then they got even more backlash from Ellen DeGeneres, for example, who, by the way, I'm sure a lot of you probably know is lesbian. She said, this is 2019. Why are we doing this? Why are you taking this down? Show representation for us. Why are you freaking out about this? Ellen wasn't the only one. There were a lot of people who kind of came out and yelled at Hallmark. So guess what? Hallmark put the ads back on. So good for Hallmark. Really, really glad that they did that. They did fold to the pressure at first. They didn't really know what to do. But the important bit is that they did the right thing in the end, in my eyes. So the transformed wife says, the one thing I appreciated about Hallmark is its decency, and now they have done away with that. I'm not sure why showing a wedding planning commercial is inherently lacking decency. That's kind of weird to me, but whatever. Next one. President Obama thinks women make better leaders. Way to beat men further down. Plus, it's directly against God's will. God created men to be the leaders and the ones in authority. Wisdom is no longer popular. Feelings and emotions have taken over. It's a sad day. God created men to be the leaders and the ones in authority. God didn't create men at all. If you actually, there are so many ways to go about debunking the idea that God created men 6,000 years ago. We'll just go with that one. God didn't create men 6,000 years ago. You know how I know that? I'll give you two examples of how I know the earth has been around for longer than 6,000 years. First, we have trees that are 10,000 years old. And we can tell because we can stick a drill in those trees and drill out part of the core and count the rings. That's something everybody did in elementary school. It's not exactly one ring to 1 year, but it evens out to that over the years. So we have trees that are 600 years old. We can basically cut them down and count the rings, and there are about 600 of them. Because it's winter-summer cycles. Winter-summer cycles. That's what causes the rings in the first place, is the exposure to the cold air and then the hot sun beating down. Exposure to the cold air, hot sun beating down. That's what causes it. Now, you'll have some far milder winters sometimes, and you'll have really cold bursts and then heat bursts and cold bursts sometimes. So, like I said, it's not exactly one ring to 1 year all the time, but it evens out to that over the course of thousands of years. And we have that exact thing. We have 10,000-year-old trees. So the Earth is not 6,000 years old, bottom line. I'm sorry to break it to you. Not just trees, but we have ice cores in the Arctic. Every winter in the Arctic, it snows, and then it melts and then freezes again and creates basically a kind of like a ring. So when you drill down into the ice and pull out these giant-ass ice cores, you can count the rings on that too. And I think they've gotten down to 20,000 ice core rings, basically. I could be wrong on that one. Anyway, 2 examples of how we know the Earth is older than 10,000 years. Not to mention the fact that we have astronomy and we have the theory of relativity figured out and the speed of light figured out, and we can calculate how far stars are and all kinds of other stuff. This woman is just living in a fantasy world. Young women are taught throughout their entire childhoods to pursue careers, so they pursue higher education, careers, and gain a lot of debt. Okay. Men gain a lot of debt when they're trying to get careers too. That's just the nature of getting a career. So as that is a downside, it's a downside that everybody faces. I'm not sure why she's using that as a point against women specifically. They are taught their goal in life is a career, not marriage and motherhood. We are reaping what we have sown as a nation. Not sure what she means by we're reaping what we've sown as a nation either. Women are doing phenomenally well at this moment in the country. Well, they're doing better than they have historically. I would like to see a lot more progress than we have seen toward women being more equal in society, toward wages being more fair, toward all kinds of other stuff. As Noah continued to obey God as others mocked and ridiculed him, we are to continue to obey God as others mock and ridicule us. We know how it ended for Noah. We know how it will end for us. All is good. That's kind of scary. So she's basically saying God murdered every living thing on the entire planet except for the people who believed in him. And that's what I'm expecting to happen to everybody who mocks me. They're all going to die horrifically. That is disturbing. But that's the Christian mindset. That's what Jehovah's Witnesses believed too. They believed that I'm going to be killed as payment for me, doing what I do on YouTube. They think that I'm going to be killed as a result of my work. And that gives them solace. That gives them comfort. That's creepy and disturbing. That's wrong. Those who say we shouldn't have more children due to overpopulation and saving the earth must not understand that this world will be burned up one day. But children are eternal beings who live forever. Wow. So, first of all, children are seriously affecting climate change on a disturbing level, like having more and more kids and overpopulation is a huge problem that needs to be addressed, absolutely. But she doesn't care, because the earth is going to just die one day, so what's it matter? Have as many kids as you want, because they're going to die one day too, and they're going to be in heaven with God. How disturbing is this woman's mindset? Like, this is just like the scratching the surface. Like, I only went through tweets for the past week or something. You guys should definitely check this woman out. She even has a blog, thetransformedwife.com. I should cover some of this stuff on my YouTube channel. It's so disturbing. If you like what I do and you want to make sure I can continue to do it, you can support me in a few ways. First, you can support me on Patreon. That's probably the best way. But if you want to get something back for your support, you can check out my Teespring. I'm trying to make a shirt design for every cult I've covered. I haven't gotten every one, but I'm working on it. So check it out and see if your cult is up there. Second, you can support me by checking out my game shop. I sell controller, cartridge, and game box stands for every system from the original Nintendo and Sega Game Gear to the Xbox One and Nintendo Switch. So give that a look too. And And finally, if you want to support me in some way other than monetarily, you can check out my other YouTube channels. I have a retro game channel where I answer questions like, why does Shy Guy have a mask? And why are CRT TVs the best way to play retro games? I also have the podcast where I talk about stuff I don't feel I can say on a monetized channel. And finally, I have my main channel where I talk about cults. I wish I didn't have to worry about dancing around subjects carefully in the first place, but I chose to do this as a full-time job, so unfortunately, I rely on YouTube's AdSense and on the support of patrons to continue doing the work I do. Anyways, check me out in all those places if you haven't already. Thanks for listening, guys.